Hello, Africa! Welcome to the Africa Desk Live. This platform was built for you. Not for governments, donors, or foreign interests, but for you, the African citizen who loves this continent, even when it breaks your heart. And here is your host, Semantics King Jr.
Happy Saturday, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Anywhere you are joining us from, we say welcome to the Africa Desk. And I'm happy to have you on the show today. This is episode 9 of 54 Conversations. And today we are actually going to be live. Well, not live, but we're going to be in South Africa today. And in the second hour, we are going to be live in Monrovia. If this is your first time joining us, we'd like to say welcome to the Africa Desk Live. This place was built for you. It was not built for um, governments, not built for foreign interests, not built for any um, political leaders or political parties. It was built for you, the African citizen. This is built for you. This is a program, a platform for you to come and have a conversation about Africa, about your country, and let the world know what is going on in your country. It's not meant for politicians, it is meant for the African citizen, and it is meant for you. So if you've never followed us and it's your first time joining us, we'd like to say welcome to the Africa Desk and um, join us anytime you can join us. We would like to hear from you. If you can hear me, okay, thank you. I see comments coming up in the chat room. Thank you so much. It looks like the sound is good. So thank you. We will not waste time with what we have today. It's a really full program we have with um, our first hour is going to be exclusively in South Africa, and the second hour is going to be in Liberia. And so let's get to it. But before we can go to South Africa and talk about our guests and also go to Liberia and talk about what is coming up from there, we would like to bring to you the session called Around Africa. And please bear with us. Let's take this time to do the section because we do it every week. Okay. Yesterday, Friday, the 17th of July, thousands of Liberians marched on Capitol Hill in Monrovia, which is the capital city of Liberia, for those of you who are non Liberians. The protest was organized by a group called STAND, STAND. It means the solidarity and trust for a new day under the banner Lead or Leave Now. Business and government activities around Capitol Hill and the Executive Mansion came close to a standstill based on reports we are receiving from Monrovia. The demand is a single number 19.2 million United States dollars in cocaine seized at Liberia's biggest airport called the Rabas International Airport. The protesters want to know whose money it was. They want the names, those involved. Then it got escalated. Friday evening, the Liberian National Police declared STAN, the organization name is STAN, but the chairman is called Malba Molo. The police department declared him armed and dangerous, saying his service firearm had been taken from an officer during the demonstration and ordering him to surrender that particular service arm. This morning, armed officers surrounded his home. We're not sure yet what the further details are on that, but that's what we gathered. And let me be precise here because precision matters here. As I came on air, Moba Molu had not been arrested yet. If he had been arrested, we do not know that yet, so we cannot confirm. He was on his way to the Painesville Magisterial Court to hand the weapon over voluntarily in front of the press. He says the gun was taken from a plainclothes officer who had infiltrated the match. The police say they had intelligence it was intended for unlawful purposes. Those are two accounts, and we will follow both of those accounts. I raised this today for a reason, and hear me out here. I raised it for a particular reason, right? In our 1 hour session today, our distinguished professor Stephen Friedman is going to tell us that one of the greatest dangers to any democracy anywhere on the planet is unaccountable people in uniforms. You hear that? He was speaking about South Africa. But listen to that line and think about Monrovia today when you listen to the conversation we had earlier on during the week with Professor Friedman. And next Saturday, interestingly, Liberia turns 179 years old. Next Saturday, that's going to be July 26th. So let that sit with you for a moment. This is a huge statement coming from an expert on South Africa. But look at what is happening in Liberia. So think about that line as we bring Professor Friedman conversation to you um, in a moment. So stay with us there. So that is Liberia. Now let's move to South Africa and then talk about South Africa a little bit. But um, before we can talk about South Africa in detail, we want you to know that today, July 18th, is Nelson Mandela International Day. It's a day that the world stops to honor a man who gave this continent of Africa one of its greatest lessons in what freedom is for. So we ask a fitting question. 2 years ago, the party that Mandela led lost its majority for the first time. 10 parties came together to form a government of national unity. Our episode is titled After the Majority, and the question is simple. 2 years on, what has that coalition actually delivered for ordinary South Africans? So tie the Nelson Mandela Day to our discussion today. And now for the Around Africa session, particularly on South Africa, I did not expect to be reading this rather, a day we go to South Africa. But across this year, South Africa has been living through a wave of violence across other Africans. Not a single incident, a campaign. It is being driven by vigilante movements, Operation Dudula, and a new group called March and March. They march through townships demanding to see papers. They block people from clinics. They shut down migrant traders. Police say at least 4 people have been killed in the latest wave. Thousands have fled their homes. Among the dead, reportedly, are Ethiopian, Mozambican, and Malawian nationals, and a South African teenager. One academic has said this is unlikely. I mean, it is unlike anything the country has seen since apartheid ended. Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and Mozambique have begun bringing their citizens home. And Human Rights Human Rights Watch reported in May, in fact, that police response has been little or insufficient. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights condemned this violence in April. And this week, the churches spoke. On Monday, the World Council of Churches. On Wednesday, from Lomé, the Fellowship of Christian Councils and Churches in West Africa called the violence horrific and senseless. Standing with South African Council of Churches, Cardinal Ambongo of SECAM had already called it what it is, un-African. Let me put it a number to that. South Africa is home to about 3 million immigrants, roughly 5% of the population. 5%. I want you to hold this in your mind for the next hour because Professor Stephen Friedman is going to be asked how we build hope for young Africans. And before he answers, he's going to stop and name this. He calls it appalling. He calls it shameful. He says there is no other way of putting it. A South African scholar on an African desk saying it plainly. This platform was built for the African citizen, every one of them, including the ones sleeping in the police station in Johannesburg tonight because a mob asked for their papers. So this is what is at stake for the continent of Africa. Now, having said all of those, we are going to turn over to Professor Freeman and listen keenly, and then we will discuss this after the discussion with him in the next couple of minutes before we bring our live guests for the second hour.
Ago, the ANC lost its majority and 10 parties formed a government of national unity. If you were writing the ledger this morning or this afternoon in South Africa, what is on the credit side of the ledger and what is on the debit side of the ledger?
Well, before I do the credit to the debit side, I think it's important to point out that government of national unity is what the politicians call it, or more specifically, what the African National Congress calls it. It's not an accurate term because a government of national unity, if you look around democracies around the world, the formation of a government of national unity has nothing whatever to do with election results. Governments of national unity get formed when very usually the largest party or the governing party feels that some sort of crisis affecting the country requires it to work with other parties in a national government. We actually did have a government of national unity in 1994, in which the African National Congress won a very comfortable majority, but it had agreed to a constitution which included two other parties because it was trying to stabilize the country after the end of apartheid. That's where governments of national unity usually play their role. The only reason why we have a so-called government of national unity is, as you correctly said in your introduction, the governing party lost its majority. That's not a national crisis at all. That's just the development of the democratic system. The reason why it's called a government of national unity is that the president, the leader of the largest party, couldn't really sell the coalition government to parts of his party because the two biggest parties are the African National Congress, of course, which is still the biggest party in the country, and the Democratic Alliance, which is really a suburban party. Most of the people who vote for it are white. And there was substantial resistance within the ANC to forming a coalition, in effect, with a party representing people who, in the ANC's view, had benefited from apartheid. So in order to sell this to his party, President Ramaphosa said, no, well, this is not a coalition government. It's a government of national unity, and anybody can join. He was perfectly well aware that the two largest black-led parties besides the ANC had made it clear that they wouldn't join a government which included the Democratic Alliance. So he knew that he would land up with the coalition that he wanted if he called it a government of national unity. And it's really a selling pitch to his party rather than an accurate description. Incidentally, it didn't really work. The doubters remained doubters despite being told it was a government of national unity. So in effect, what we have is a coalition between the two largest parties. And to put it very bluntly, with one exception, the other parties are there for decoration, because the ANC and the Democratic Alliance between them have 60% of the seats in the National Assembly. So if they agree on anything, it becomes the decision of the South African Parliament. And if all the other 8 left tomorrow, they would still have a majority. The exception, the party which is still needed in the coalition, is the Inkatha Freedom Party, which is based in the KwaZulu-Natal province. And the reason why the Inkatha Freedom Party is so essential is because the coalition cannot govern the KwaZulu-Natal province without it. The KwaZulu-Natal is governed by a 3-party coalition: ANC, Democratic Alliance, and the Inkatha Freedom Party. And in fact, the premier of the province, the head of the government of the province, is an Inkatha Freedom Party politician, not an ANC or DA politician. So that's what we have. We have a coalition of parties who are far more used to being rude to each other than governing each other. And this is shown. So if you look at the ledger, I mean, on the one side, it very often hasn't been a particularly pretty government to look at, in the sense that they've continued fighting with each other in public. This was true of about the first few months of the government. It culminated last year in an initial failure to pass the budget. The Democratic Alliance refused to vote for the budget. And that meant that despite the fact that we had this national coalition government, which was demonstrating repeatedly that it wasn't a government of national unity, the only reason why the budget was passed last year is because a couple of parties who are not in the government were persuaded to vote for the budget. So that's the only reason we had a budget. Now that created a sense of embarrassment, as you can imagine. And after last year's budget crisis, they got together and they said, well, we really ought to stop fighting in public. And since then, they've stopped fighting in public. But that's probably about to change too, because the leadership of the Democratic Alliance has changed. They elected a new leader. And everything he's done since he became the new leader has indicated that they want to go back to the old arrangement of fighting in public. So that seems to be the reality. We're going to have a government which fights in public. It doesn't really, it creates wonderful headlines for journalists and talking points on various platforms. It doesn't really affect very much the way the government runs. And so what we have and what we had and will probably go back to is a government which argues with itself in public, but then gets on with the job of governing. Now, what has that meant in practice? In practice, it has meant that this is really a holding action, I think is the best way of putting it. There are a whole lot of issues on which they do not agree, the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. And the way in which they are choosing to deal with this now is simply to put those issues to one side and concentrating on what they do agree on. And what they do agree on is trying to make government work better than it worked over the last few years, and trying to encourage economic growth by wooing investors. And that's been very much part of the agenda. So on the one level, the plus for citizens is that, you do have a government, probably the first, in effect, the first in our democratic history, which is very well aware that it had better keep on the right side of voters, because if it doesn't, it will cease to be the government. And that is a huge plus, and that does mean that there's far more seriousness about trying to make government work better.
Mm.
On the other hand, there's a growing sense, and I've become more aware of this over the last few months. There's, perhaps I should say, a growing concern that all of this is being done at the expense of the majority of South Africans, who are people living in poverty. So that if you look at what government's about at the moment, there's a lot of concern about making the environment better for investors, making sure that government is more efficient, and none of those are problems for citizens, but very little concern about the fact that the majority of people in this country still live in poverty. Their situation was not healthy to start off with. It has been severely damaged further by the effects of the COVID-19 epidemic. And it's an indication of South Africa's inequalities that if you look at the economic effects of COVID-19 here, middle class and suburban people actually didn't suffer that much economically. I mean, there was huge human suffering, obviously, but people in the townships where poorer people live suffered a great deal, and you don't really see from this government any serious attempt to rectify any serious attempt to put in place programs which are really designed to make sure that the majority of people benefit from this arrangement, and they may pay a political price for that later on.
Well, thank you for giving us that long context there, Professor Friedman. This is really helpful, and my audience will understand the context here. And you mentioned the budget. Now, this in 2025, the finance minister had to bring the budget 3 times.
Correct.
When it finally passed, it passed with the votes of Action South Africa and Build One South Africa, parties that are outside of the coalition, like you mentioned. What does that tell you about a governing coalition that cannot pass its own budget with its own votes?
Look, it tells you the reality, I mean, which makes this government of national unity tag even more ironic. I was repeated, perhaps the best way to put it is this, in interviews, etc., I was asked several times while the negotiations for this government was going on, which is the best government, given that we're going to have to form a coalition, which is the best government for the country? And I continually made the point that was asking the wrong question, because the question was, which was viable? There was only one which could work, which is what we have at the moment, because the only alternative to that, I mean, the first alternative to that would be a coalition between the African National Congress and the Economic Freedom Fighters, which is a party formed by a former head of the ANC, Youth League, who was actually expelled from the ANC, Julius Malema, which is a more militantly nationalist party than the ANC, and which has there are people in senior positions in the ANC who are quite sympathetic to the EFF, but they have a huge problem, and that is that the ANC vote plus the EFF vote does not add up to 50%. So the ANC, the only way the ANC could govern in a coalition with the EFF would be if they tacked on some smaller parties. And, since our political system started changing and coalitions became the norm, there's been a lot of complaints about coalitions in local government where you have 10 parties and then 1 or 2 of the parties can disrupt the entire coalition, etc. So that wasn't really an option. The only other option was to bring in the MK party, which is run by, in effect, by former President Jacob Zuma. And the reason why there's an MK party in the first place is that, the MK party and the ANC couldn't actually coexist in the same organization. And, the idea that they would be able to govern with each other for more than a few weeks is not credible, because I mean, the MK party doesn't support the current constitution. So, how you have a coalition between a party which supports the constitution and a party which rejects it is not entirely clear. So the point that I'm making is that, why was the budget not passed? Because you have a coalition which is there because it's really the only option available to the party. The DA has told its supporters, the Democratic Alliance has told its supporters repeatedly that if the EFF or the MK party are allowed into the government, the country will be ruined. Which means that the DA can never leave the coalition, because if it leaves the coalition, then it has to explain to its voters why it was prepared to ruin the country by allowing MK or the EFF into government. So the DA doesn't have those options. I've just explained why the ANC doesn't have any other options.
Right.
So really they are forced to govern together. And they don't really want to govern together. And the situation, of course, is obviously made more extreme by the fact that within both groups, both within the DA constituency and within the ANC constituency, there's a lot of resistance to this arrangement.
Wow.
So the DA in particular seems to feel the need repeatedly to signal to its constituents, we haven't deserted you. We told you the ANC was dreadful. We still think the ANC is dreadful. And this all culminated in the budget. This
Right.
all culminated in the budget. And to make the situation worse, until the budget, they didn't really seem to have any kind of arrangement for how to deal with their disagreements, because they used to have the most basic disagreements in public. And you actually wondered, when they were disagreeing in public like this, what happened at cabinet meetings, because they behaved in public as though they'd never, at one stage, in the communications, I'll give you a concrete example. In the communications ministry, which has a DA minister and an ANC deputy minister, the ANC minister said in public, the minister and I get on fine. We just don't agree on whether we should legislate or not, But that's what's more basic than that? You can't agree on. I think the specific issue was whether legislation should be passed to deal with a problem in the public broadcaster. Well, if you can't agree on that in public, it's very difficult to understand what you could agree on. So,
Absolutely.
it's been, and so as I say, this culminated in a situation which was deeply embarrassing, where, as you correctly say, they had 3 attempts to pass the budget. They could only do it because 2 smaller parties who stayed out of the coalition were persuaded. And the reason why the 2 smaller parties supported the budget was essentially, which made the fight within the coalition look more ridiculous. The issue of dispute is whether value-added tax, which affects consumers, it's applied at the checkout counters when you buy goods and so on, whether that should be raised or not. And Action SA and Build One South Africa said, well, we'll vote for your budget if you take the rise in value-added tax out, which the ANC did, and that was the end of the matter. But you kind of wondered afterwards, well, shouldn't the DA have just gone to a cabinet meeting and say, we'll take the value-added tax out? And then you could have passed the budget at the first attempt. So it's really an indication of how difficult the coalition partners have found it to actually work with each other.
Interesting to know that. So, and I'm listening to you, and I'm just wondering about all of this. When you set the economy aside for a moment, and then talk about the household, 2 years on, with all the lingering issues and the bickering among one party to the other, and they call it still national unity. What has changed in the life of a person, of a sister, a mother, a child in Khayelitsha, one of the villages in Limpopo, or anywhere in South Africa? What has changed for a woman, for a young man, for a young girl who wants good education, better healthcare, who wants to see a better South Africa? What has changed for them?
Look, I think it's, if you ask many people, they would say, oh, well, nothing has changed, etc., etc. I think that's a bit unfair. I don't think it's entirely true to say that. I think
Mm.
that when government operates better, and as I said earlier, it's less a case of saying, well, we have wonderful coalition partners who make government work better. It's more a case of saying, well, government works better, as I said, because the politicians are afraid of what voters might do to them if government doesn't work better, which is how democracy is supposed to work, incidentally. If you have a situation, and we have had that situation in which the politicians are more responsive, then people's situations do improve. The problem we have, and that's one of the big problems of South African democracy, is that we don't have the kind of strong links between the politicians and citizens that we should have. And that means that even if you have improvements, people don't credit the politicians with those improvements, because the gap between, the politicians are not out there working with citizens and saying we can do this together. And so, for example, when something improves, the politicians don't necessarily get the credit. So I'll give you an example of one of the things which indicates how things have changed. And that is that sometime after the government, a few months after the government took office, we suddenly saw that in public, extortion became an issue people were talking about. And by extortion, we mean a situation in which people use criminal gangs of various sorts use their power in order to make sure that if you want something, you have to pay for it. So it's something that you're entitled to. Now, people started raising this issue and there were attempts to deal with it, etc. What was interesting about that is that if you go back in this country to various media reports and academic studies, etc., extortion didn't start becoming a problem 2 years ago. Extortion's been a problem for 10 to 15 years. But it hasn't been a problem people talked about because the politicians weren't worried about voters and the politicians had their minds elsewhere, and they didn't get extorted. It was precisely the people you're describing in the townships who were being extorted, and they don't have the voice that they should have. And so nothing was done. Once the coalition took over after a while, it started to become an issue because politicians realized it was something that really was affecting people's lives and they ought to do something about. So the fact that they are now trying to do something about the problem is a positive change for citizens. But I've encountered no evidence that anybody gives them any credit for it at all. Because, and that's not, I'm not blaming the citizens, I'm blaming the politicians. Because people say, well, you should have done this 10 years ago. Or people say, well, you talk about it, but we still haven't seen any evidence that you're actually going to do anything about it. And as I say, the reason for that is that if you don't have these strong links, then that's how people react. At one stage during my career, I was reporting on and analyzing the trade union movement. And it was a time in our history where there were very strong links between the trade union leadership and the members of the trade unions. And in those situations, if you did something right, you did get credit. Of course, if you did something wrong, you had to account, and that's as it should be.
Right.
But the point is, there wasn't cynicism about the trade union leadership because people knew that they'd elected that leadership. The leadership stayed in touch with them. The leadership informed them of what it was going to do next. And therefore people felt that they had a joint responsibility with the leadership for making things work. But if you simply sit in an office, with a bunch of policy experts and you take some decision, and then you expect people to actually realize that you've improved their lives, you're really not understanding how democratic politics works, and that's the core problem. So. You very often hear it said about South Africa since 1994, generally that nothing has changed. And in the book Prisoners of the Past, which you mentioned, I spend quite a bit of time explaining that a great deal has changed. But people do not credit the politicians for those changes for the reasons I've just given, because you just don't have those links between the politicians and the citizens.
Okay. Well, thank you for highlighting that and letting me know that while there are some of power balance struggles, among politicians, there's some sort of changes that have been made in South Africa. So, but for about I think 30 years, South Africans knew exactly whom to blame. There was, one party in charge at the time, and everybody would point to the party. Now there are 10. Has the coalition government made accountability sharper because parties expose one another, or blurrier because everyone can point at somebody else?
Well, everybody's certainly pointing at somebody else. Well, certainly the two biggest parties are pointing at somebody else.
Hmm.
And it means, yeah, what it means is that you do get a more accountability in the sense that, I mean, I often make the point, which it has both negatives and positives, is that for the last 2 years it's less of a government than a collection of ministries.
Hmm.
So in other words, you know, the parties are very concerned if they control a ministry to
Hmm.
make clear, look, we're doing these wonderful things, okay? We're not taking responsibility for what the others are doing.
Hmm.
And that does enhance accountability to a certain extent. I mean, okay, I, I'll just illustrate with an anecdote which affects me personally, and I'm simply doing it because, and okay, I'm kind of middle class and I can get attention with people in Shaq's car. But
Hmm.
just to indicate a small change, not a few months after this government took over, um, I got invited to a conference in the US, and I needed, my passport had expired. So I needed, obviously, to get which I'm entitled to as a citizen,
Hmm.
to get a passport from the ministry and from the Department of Home Affairs, which is the department responsible. And it was really a very frustrating experience. I won't go into all the details, and I got so irritated by it that I put something up on one of the media platforms describing my experience. I got a phone call from the minister's office within an hour.
Wow.
The next day, I was escorted to the passport office by a senior official in the ministry. And the day after that, I got my passport. Okay. Now,
Wow.
you say on the one hand, this is a middle class guy using a media platform, etc. But I can
Hmm.
assure you, I've been a South African for a very long time. 5 years ago, if that had happened and I'd put it up, maybe 2 weeks later, somebody would have maybe sent me an email, and maybe 3 weeks later, I might have get a passport, etc. But
Wow.
clearly, this was, and just to illustrate that, when I got to the passport office, etc., there was there was some problem or other, and
Hmm.
the official who I was dealing with phoned the ministry to speak to somebody, and I heard this voice on the other end saying, "The minister says this has got to be sorted out by the end of today." Okay. So it's simply an illustration of what happens when you have greater accountability. You
Yeah.
know, because obviously the plus for them is that if they get it right, they can claim the
Hmm.
credit, but they're also aware that if they get it wrong, the
Hmm.
opposite applies. So in that sense, I think it does. We haven't had this situation, which I think is common in coalitions in many cases, which I think is what you're referring to.
Hmm.
Where the parties cover for each other and
Right.
nobody's really
Right.
responsible, so you can't really
Hmm.
get anything done. No, it's been very different to that.
Okay, good. Well, a year ago, a provincial police commissioner, I think you may have alluded to something similar, if not, but a provincial police commissioner stood up in combat fatigues and said critical, and said criminal syndicates had captured parts of the police. The Molanga Commission has now sat for more than 130 days. The police minister is suspended. The national commissioner is suspended. A witness was murdered. What does this tell us about who actually holds power in South Africa as opposed to who holds office?
Well, it's a very good question, but I think that it's actually playing itself out perhaps in a different. It's a good question, perhaps for a different reason than most people might think it's a good question. Okay, let me try and explain. We have a very long-standing problem in this country, which has been documented by other commissions, which most notably something called the Murani Commission, which sat in the KwaZulu-Natal province, of infighting within the police. Okay, you have factions within the police, some of them linked to politicians. Former President Zuma was head of ANC intelligence when the ANC was in exile. And that's important because a lot of the people who worked in his intelligence department then went into the police. So he had this network of people who had worked with him in the past within the police. So you have a very factionalized police force. You have high levels of corruption. Amidst of this, you have this general standing up, as you've correctly described, making these allegations. Now, what I believe should have happened after the general made his allegations, the commission was appointed, that was appropriate. What should have happened and has not happened is that the person who made the allegation should have been subjected to the same critical questioning as the people he made the allegations about, which is what I thought was going to happen when the Mandela Commission was appointed. And that has not happened. So what has tended to happen is that the allegations have been taken at face value, despite the fact that you haven't had a process of testing them. And I think there's serious questions to be asked about some of these allegations and some of the motives for some of the allegations. So, for example, it just so happens, which is quite indicative of some trends in democratic South Africa, that when the general, so as you correctly say, the general made this broad accusation that there was this wide-ranging attempt by criminal syndicates to take over the judiciary, the police service, etc. The only people he mentioned by name were people who'd been political opponents of Mr. Zuma, including the deputy chief of police, the deputy commissioner of police, General Sabir, who'd been actually fired by Zuma. So you begin, first of all, you begin to ask yourself, well, sorry, what is happening? You know, why? You say there's this wide-ranging conspiracy. Why do you only mention the names of people in a particular political faction?
Right.
And that's never been answered. Okay. We then had another incident, which I thought was kind of troubling. So you had a former police minister who was accused by the general of taking money from a criminal. So he's accused of taking money from the criminal. The day after he's accused, he goes before a parliamentary hearing and he in effect supports what the general had to say. At which stage the general says, I apologize, you didn't take money from the criminal. So, sorry, I don't understand why whether you took money from the criminal or not is dependent on what whose side you take at a parliamentary hearing. So it does kind of imply that if you're on one side politically, you're being held to account, and if you're on the other side politically, you're not being held to account. And that is the way in which Mandela is playing out at the moment. And we also had a parliamentary committee which is playing out in the same way. And my concern is, I have several concerns. My first concern is that as somebody who is deeply concerned about democracy, one of the greatest dangers to democracy anywhere in the world ever is unaccountable people in uniforms. Okay, because remember that in any society, the people in uniforms are the only people who have a license to carry a gun, unqualified license. They're allowed to use force against us. We're not allowed to use force against them. And therefore, we need to be very careful about that they're working for us and we're not working for them. And it seems to me that if you allow a person in uniform to make allegations and you don't test them very carefully, then you're looking for trouble.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think we need as a society to move beyond this very interesting, very strange pattern in which we don't worry about how the system is working or whether the rules are working. There are good guys and bad guys. And everybody who's been, all the national figures who've been accused in front of the Mandela Commission were people who were heroes and heroines 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when Zuma was president. Now, if I'd criticized any of those people then, I would have been accused of being in favor of corruption. If I defend any of those people now, I'm accused of being in favor of corruption. Now, you can't. That's not how corruption works. And thirdly, finally, I remain worried that when the dust has settled on everything that's happening in the moment, it will turn out that our democracy was recruited, in effect, to take one side in a factional fight in the police against another side.
Wow.
It's really not what democracy should be about. So I think it's very concerning, and it illustrates various concerning aspects of our society. But the fact that there is factionalism in the police is not new. The Morani Commission reported on that years ago, and one has to say that if you outside the police, if you compare the allegations which the general made to the evidence which has come before the commission, they fall very short of what he had to say, because there is no evidence. He said the judiciary, which is very concerning in any democratic society, the judiciary is involved in working for criminals rather than the people. So far, the only member of the judiciary who they've even accused of anything is a judge who is accused. The accusation has been rightly ignored. They accused the judge of taking bribes because he gave somebody bail. They have no evidence that he took a bribe from anybody. They have no evidence that any money taken out. They feel that he shouldn't have given the person bail. So the implication was, well, you gave the person bail because they bribed you. Now, that is not a serious allegation. So, this idea that the judiciary is rotten to the core has not been justified. The politicians who are accused may have made errors of judgment, but that's not the same as working for criminals. So, in a sense, we've had this huge drama, and everything I'm telling you now is a very much minority position. But I'm not convinced that our democracy is benefiting from this. And I'm not even convinced that our police is going to operate better as a result.
Well, this is so much information and knowledge for non-South Africans and people who are not followers of South Africa. This is really great information because we are talking about democracy in African countries, and we want our citizens abroad, South Africans who live abroad who want to come back home, say other Africans who live abroad who want to come back home. And when they see examples like this one, last week, Saturday, we're discussing Sierra Leone, and there are concerns there as well about democracy. Professor Friedman, I put this to you. And going a little bit away from South Africa, how can we create an environment of hope for young Africans on the continent if we are having series of these issues among African countries?
Well, look, I think there are a couple of things that need to be said here. If you talk about issues between South African, let's not. Well, we could talk about this appalling campaign in South Africa at the moment against other Africans, which is shameful. There's no other way of putting it. But if you look at this as a continent-wide question, and as I say, I democracy is at the center of my concerns because I really believe, I really believe that real democracy, and we could talk about what real democracy is, actually does enable people to control their lives, does enable people to make choices, and I think that's important for human beings. we're operating in a very different environment to the one even a few years ago, and across the continent. I don't think people are fully aware of this yet. And that is that the general view shared by many Africans was that democracy was the system which worked in Western Europe and North America. And if we really tried very hard and we were good at it, we could become like them. Okay.
Mhm.
And we were always judged by how good we were at becoming like them.
Yes.
Well, if you look at what's happening to democracy in Western Europe and North America at the moment,
Yeah.
then you realize that wanting to be like them is not particularly sensible at the moment. Okay. And what has happened over the last few years, you know, I was at an international meeting on democracy a few months ago, just to indicate how much this has changed. And there's an organization which presented a report there which monitors democracy around the world. And I can absolutely tell you that 5 or 6 years ago, this would have been a long lecture about how wonderfully things were going in Europe and North America, and how much we poor Africans and Asians and Latin Americans had to do to catch up. It was just the opposite. The entire report was, I actually said in my response afterwards, the most important thing about this report is that there's no difference any longer between you and us. You know, we're in the same, you're in the same position as you always said we were. Mm. And I think that's important to understand. The problem is not that democracy doesn't work. The problem is that democracy is not being tried in many cases. Mm. And the stronger your democracy is, the better off you go. You know, one point which is always ignored, there's a long period in our post-independence history on the continent in which there were only 2 countries on the entire continent whose economies grew over a 40-year period. And there were only 2 countries in the continent who were working democracies, and they were the same 2 countries. They happen to be Botswana and Mauritius. So it seems to me that if you're only 2 working democracies, there are only 2 places where people are better off each year, then there may be some link between the 2. So I think what we have to do on the continent, and I'm actually writing a book on precisely this issue, you know, is that we have to get out of that mindset of saying, well, you know, if we really try hard, we can be like the Americans, the Europeans. I think we have to look at our own situation. And we have to say, you know, we are better off as African societies if Africans are allowed to take decisions which affect them, or allowed to take the decisions which affect their lives. And I think that if we do that, we can make quite substantial progress, because we are no longer in a situation in which, you know, it was always a myth to claim that we were backward democratically. I mean, in one of my previous books on Botswana particularly, you know, there was this article by some guy in Chicago who said, well, Botswana is not a real democracy because only 48% only 48% of Botswana can name their member of parliament. Wow. Do you know what the equivalent? Do you know what the only equivalent? So 48% of Botswana knew who their member of parliament was. What was the equivalent figure in Britain? 22%. And in Sweden, it was 18%. Okay. Wow. So, in other words, Botswana were twice as politically well-informed as Britons and almost 3 times well-informed as Swedes. So all of that has been just a sort of propaganda thing. But really the issue now is that our democracies, which the African democracy, and obviously we know that in a lot of African countries, there aren't democracies at the moment because there have been coups, etc. But in those countries where there are democracies, the democracy is no better or worse than it is in those rich countries.
Thank you for... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
We have the opportunity to make it work, not because we want to be like them, but because it works for us.
Well, that was a fascinating conversation that I had with Dr. Freeman from South Africa. I had to bring that there's more to the conversation that I had with Dr. Professor Friedman from South Africa, and we will be posting the conversation on the Africa Desk Live, so that you can see detail and hear more from him. Just so you are aware, um, Dr. Professor Stephen Friedman is a research professor in the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. He has published several studies on South Africa's transition to democracy, and his current work focuses on the theory and practice of democracy. He's the author of several books, numerous book chapters, and journal articles. His study of South Africa's democratic trajectory, Prisons of the Past, South African Democracy, and the Legacy of Minority Rule, was published in 2021. His most recent book, Good Jew, Bad Jew, Racism, Anti-Racism, Anti-Semitism rather, and the Assault on Meaning, discusses the use of ostensibly anti-racist language to justify racism. He is also a media commentator on the development of South African democracy and the author of a weekly column for subscribers titled Against the Tide. That is the guest we had for this week from South Africa. Very widely respected, renowned scholar from South Africa. And we had a fascinating conversation, he and I, this week. He couldn't really make it live because of other commitment that he had, but we really do appreciate you, Professor Freeman, for coming to the show and helping us get more understanding on the political landscape right now unfolding in South Africa. This is episode 9 of 54 Conversations. Every Saturday, we bring one African country to the desk to discuss what is happening there. This is a show not for governments, it's not for foreign interests, it's not for foreign donors. It's a show for you, the African citizen. You come to the show, you tell us what is happening on the ground. In very rare cases, would we bring a government official here? If we do that, it means we want them to counter whatever the scholars, the journalists, the activists may say on the show. Other than that, it's not for them. The show is not for them. If you want to hear about government officials and politicians and political candidates, what they want to say about their campaigns, there are other platforms for that. This platform is only for the African citizen. And whether you are watching us today from Johannesburg or Cape Town or from Durban or from Pretoria or from Soweto, anywhere, whether from London or Atlanta or Minneapolis or even in Monrovia, where we will be going live in a moment, this is the Africa Desk. Pull a chair, pull a seat, let's talk, let's discuss. Thank you so much. I am Semantics King, and that was hour 1. Now we're going to be flipping over to go to hour 2. That's the second hour, because the first hour we heard a lot about South Africa. And we are going to go to the second hour. My guest that I'm going to be bringing to you right now, again, I've said this repeatedly, but I need to say it again. They are not South Africans. They have knowledge of South Africa. They know what is happening, but they are not South African. They are guests of the show who deserve a platform to come and talk about an amazing work they are doing in Liberia, which is why we have them coming to the show today. And you will be hearing from them shortly. But before I do that, I left out one key information, because on the show, we also talk about countries that are celebrating their independence. I think we might have talked about this briefly last time. If we did not, it's worth repeating that the Republic of Sao Tome and Principe celebrated their birthday, their independence rather, not birthday, their independence, I think last week. And so we salute all of them. I think it was on the 12th of July, that island nation celebrated 51 years of full independence from Portugal. It was won in 1975. That's when they won their independence. It's a small country, 2 islands in the Gulf of Guinea, and reminder that the map of African freedom is still being filled. So I just wanted that to be out there for everybody to be aware of that. So that's the conversation we have with Professor Friedman. I do not have a time to go into comments or questions or bring people on board. So I'm going to go to the second hour. Okay, welcome back to the Africa Desk. Um, and I already said at the onset here, I'm going to be bringing two guests that are not South African, but they may hear about South Africa. My two guests this hour are not, like I repeatedly say here, I will not pretend otherwise, but this second hour is very important for the show. It belongs to the grassroots and the diaspora, to the builders who are working on the ground. And the story I'm about to show you runs from Minnesota all the way to Monrovia, which means it runs straight through my own heart because I am Liberian. I'm a son of Liberia, as you all know. And Liberia's Independence Day is coming up next week. So we will talk about that next week. So pull up a chair and let's talk about Liberia. On my panel, well, my guest this afternoon, this morning rather, it's still after 11 o'clock, but after 4 o'clock in Monrovia, I'd like to welcome co-founders of the United Distant Stars. From Minnesota is the executive director, Heather Cannon, and live from Monrovia is about 4 o'clock in Monrovia is another executive director and co-founder, Kelvin Fulmer. I'd like to welcome them on stage right now. Let me bring in Heather. Heather, hello. Welcome to the show. Okay, you are on mute. You could, let me see here.
I'm
Okay,
on
now that,
mute. I'm off.
good.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to have you to the show. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on our show today.
Thank you,
Good,
Semantics. And
good.
also, happy Mandela Day.
Thank you.
You picked the right time to do South Africa. So, yeah.
Thank you. And then I'm going to be bringing Kelvin on the show as well. Kelvin, welcome to the show. As we say in Lofa County, Ise.
Falo Aniro, hello.
Elon, I'm looking there.
Hey, Kamasware. Hello, you
Welcome,
see,
welcome to the
we are
show.
treating you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. So,
But
um,
remember, Heather has a Gisi name. Ask her to
what
tell you the Gisi name.
what's Heather? What's your kissy name?
See ya.
Oh, Sia, that's the firstborn, the first girl child. So,
But
for
that
those
doesn't
of you,
work in my family that way. I'm actually the last born girl child, but I'm the only one that's been to Liberia, so we make an exception.
wow, that's amazing. Well, it's good to have you both on the show. I really do appreciate the time you have spent working
Thank you.
together and coming on the show. Kevin, we're going to talk in depth here with Heather, but I need to know first whether everything is okay with you in Monrovia because I'm reading on the news that there was a huge demonstration yesterday that happened in Monrovia, and there's a lot ongoing there. Are you okay? Are you safe where you are?
Yeah, I am safe, and the Liberian people are safe. Everything was put under control, and everybody are going on carry on their normal businesses and works.
Okay.
So it's okay. Yeah.
Good, good. Thank you. Good to know that. All right, now let's go into the show. Kelvin, I want to start with you because your story is the reason this organization exists. You were raised by a single mother through more
Right.
disruptions to your schooling than any child should have actually carried out. Take me
Right.
back there. What did those years teach you? And when did you decide that other children and other mothers would not suffer the same way you and your mother did?
Well, thank you very much for that question. You know, my struggle gave me a very deep insight, you know, and it's a long story, but what I believe in is that the pain is not something that you can dodge, meaning pain is something that you have to go through it. You cannot go under it, you cannot go on top of it, you have to go through it. So what I did, I decided to, you know, change my pain or transform my pain into empathy and purpose. Because during those days, you can no longer compare it to this day. or to now. Before, there was no internet to help with education, to do a research. We used to, we were compelled to buy books. Every subject, you have to buy books, that particular books. There where you do your research. But it was very difficult for a single mother raising a child, you know, why, where, or it came from a poor background. She did a lot, she did her best, but they reached certain area, there was no way. And her blessing carried me through unto present because when I drive from the academic, we cried, both of us, and she said, hey, you got to go into the ski training. One day, you will continue your academic. And I listened to her. I started embarking on ski training, driving, auto mechanic, welding, a lot. I did a lot of skills. Then I remember what she told me. She said, time will come. You will go back to school. You had desire. So when that was ring in my ears, I say, I need to follow that. I decided to go back to school,
Hmm. We'll talk more about going back to school there,
which
but this
I
is
can be able to.
it's really, yeah, it's really heartwarming for me. Where is your mother now? Is she in Liberia there or not?
She's late. She's
Oh, I'm
late.
so sorry
She's
to hear
late.
that. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
to hear that.
she's late.
She
10 years.
she would be
Yeah,
proud of you today if
10
she
years
were
ago.
alive, you know. She'd be very, very proud of you because
Oh,
of the work you
yes.
have done and the commitment you have to teaching children on in Liberia there. We are all very proud of you. You know, thank you for the great work you're doing there. And I'm so sorry to hear
Yeah.
about your loss, Kevin. Okay. Can you hear me? I don't know whether he's frozen. You can hear me.
Been,
Hmm.
Okay. I think he we may be having some difficulties there, but I will I'll come back to Kelvin there to
no,
hear.
for me, I am clear. I'm clear here. I am getting
Okay,
you loud and clear.
okay,
I don't
okay,
know,
good,
maybe
good,
from
good.
your side.
Okay,
I don't.
thank you. Now I know it's not an easy thing to go through what you went through because I mean I'm Liberian and I lived through the war, so I know what that challenge is. I
Mm,
was a direct victim of that war, so I understand. Now,
yeah.
moving from that sad story a little bit, not totally, but going to the better side. You mentioned how your mom encouraged you and talked to you
Yeah.
about education. Now you earn a degree in geology. You could have
Hmm.
taken that and then build something comfortable for yourself, like
Yeah.
many people would do in societies where we live. It's all about me, I, and myself, and just focus on you. Instead,
Hmm.
you did not. You decided to use your knowledge into helping young children. Why did you stay to do that?
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, we all know, me and you know, that geology is in demand. Whosoever studied geology, you are in demand. And I have denied so many offer from the ministry, from companies. The reason is simple because I believe that if I get into that job, I am just going to help few people, my family or friends. I would not be allowed to do what I was called for. So, and this is what I'm doing is what I was called for, and nothing. I have decided that nothing going to stop that. Not a job, not a and a friendship. So I put my all into it. The reason is simple. I said from the early stage, that questions what I went through or why I decided to help is like when I can feel that within myself that sharing my story, my present to the people that I talk to is making them have the belief that, you know, surviving a hardship is possible. So, and I've been, succeeding in so many cases, in so many meeting people that feel that there is no time for them again. They have already lost. I share my story with them and then bring them back to life. I have so many people that have done that too. So if I'm just going to focus on that job because wherever I find myself. But having a free time to do this, look for people, and I'm always lucky to meet this kind of people that are going through a lot, going through pain from family, from a lot of things, traumatizations, and I have been gifted that whenever I share my story and talk to these people, I can see that changes in
Mm,
them. I can see that confidence in them. I can see them coming back to themselves.
mm,
And most of them, trust me, they call me and share their life, how they have been changed. I love doing this.
mm,
That's all.
mm.
I love doing that.
That is inspiring, Kevin. I have some comments I'm going to be sharing with you or showing you, and then I'll ask you for a reaction there. So, before we came on the air, Heather had posted, would share the link of the desk on her profile, and people went online and started commenting, and I was moved by some of the commenters, really. So I'm going to be sharing those comments with you, and I will hear your thoughts on those comments. But I'm going to go to Heather here. You are a lifelong Minnesotan. You could be, forgiving for never thinking twice about a small country like Liberia on a side, on a different side of the world. But you went to Liberia, and something there would not let you go. What did you see when you went to Liberia?
Well, it was my first trip ever abroad. It was 98. Um, the sanctions were on. The international airport couldn't take large commercial flights, so we first ended up in Cote d'Ivoire and drove in to Monrovia. So, up through Donalay in the country that way. Um, this is a country that I don't know. There's different opinions whether it was one continual war with a break. I was there during the break, or two civil wars. Um, you get in there, and the people were hospitable. Their houses may have been in ruins because of war. They would offer you drink and food if you came to their place. What really captured me was I don't remember where it was, but it was six university students started a free school. They actually had a decent building, but they had nothing else. No school supplies, but they had a makeshift chalkboard, cement blocks with like bamboo slats for benches, and we had brought in some relief supplies, and we brought food for a cookout. So the students decided to get together, sing songs, do skits, and one little boy got up and recited the Emancipation Proclamation, which is a document that we didn't really cover when I was in primary school, because these would be like primary level school students. And I realized people, no matter what, there's always a hunger for learning. And those of us, like I went through public school, we had access to it. You didn't have to think twice about going to school. Where I now know even the government schools are still a cost to it. Nothing is free, and the kids were just, the kids are going through this process of destruction, and now there's sanctions. Obviously, you see who really gets impacted by the sanctions. But and no matter if you see the signs of hunger, they're still playing and laughing. They're just have to make do, but they still want something better. And so that stuck with me. And every time I come back, whether I was living there or since there, when I come visit what we're doing over there, if you go to our school, the kids don't want to leave.
Mm,
the academic side of it. And it's hard. I think one of the video I shared with you, they're pretty loud back there. Um, they kind of dominate the school, but it's just they have the energy. I think, our innocence as kids, um, I think we forget it as we get older, that we have hopes, we have dreams. We feel impossible maybe sometimes that we can do it all at that age, and you really want to harness that. And just it's a lot of about resources. Like I said, sanctions were on, things weren't coming in,
mm,
um, and people didn't have access to like notepad and pencil or pen or whatever. They had to find other ways to learn, and those who are hungry to learn would find those ways.
mm. Well, there is, and thank you for sharing that history with my audience and me. There is a wide distance, Heather, between visiting a place for the first time and then building an organization for it.
Hmm.
What was the moment you knew you are not just going to help for a season, you are going to stay in this for the long haul?
Um, I think the first thing was I felt robbed.
Mm,
I had no idea what Liberia was, and I actually found out Liberia was in 1989 working at a Native American casino here in Minnesota. And so when 94 hit and internet started becoming a thing, AOL, dial up, I started doing my research and, starting learning more about this country that I had no clue about. I mean, anytime anybody hears someone say Liberia, they might say Libya.
mm,
It really wasn't known. And the more you know more about it, you know that, oh, this has a true connection to the US. This is part of the US. This is part of the US history. From what I have discovered, it goes back to Thomas Jefferson, because we can't have freed black people and enslaved black people. There was a little bit of a conflict, and the Haiti revolt, slave revolt, scared them. And then eventually Liberia became a country. And again, working at a Native American casino, it kind of had a similar theme of discovery and all that. And so, and I, working at a Native American casino, I learned more about the whole history of Native Americans. So you 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 already were feeling robbed on that, and now you feel more robbed. So you had to, we don't get the education we need to have to understand all these things. So the more and more you do your own self education, which also became part of my degree, the more you learn that we had two horrible things happening at the same time for a very long period, hundreds of years.
mm,
And so it was like, okay, this, you go there. I was there in 98. It was during election. The guy goes, what state are you from? I go, from Minnesota. You do know who your new governor is? I said, no, it's Jesse the Bod, so it just brought you more closer. And you look at the Constitution, you look at the government, you look at the shape of the license plate. It's very much connected to the United States of America. So.
yeah, that's amazing. So, and this question is going to be for the two of you. Either of you can talk about it, and maybe both of you can talk about it from two different perspectives. I want to know. My audience would like to know. You know, how did the two of you meet? How did you find each other? You went to visit. Calvin is on the ground. I mean, it because a partnership across an ocean does not just happen by accident. How did this happen?
Well, I can start. We met, I was my first year there. I was part of an organization and I was volunteering. And I think you brought it up sometimes in these small organizations, and this was another one. Money's always tight. And
Mm,
so we had vehicles and we had generators. And they're hard to keep up over there, right? Things are
right.
always breaking down. And so Kelvin was brought in to help with that
Mm,
because we were bringing in people from the US and Canada. And, if the generator goes out at night, that can kind of freak people out. And I mean, I got to learn like how much fuel a generator was burning a night. I could tell when the noise wasn't right, something bad was going to happen. You don't sleep when you're doing that stuff. So he came in and started helping, volunteering, fixing that. The thing that, besides his skills, the other thing that made me appreciate who he was
mm,
always training people. He always
mm,
had young people around him. And every once in a while, someone would come visit him, bring a gift that he may have trained in a previous job, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and they would talk about what he did for them.
mm,
So you would get credibility from the people around him, not
mm,
just his work alone.
mm. Wow, that's amazing. Kevin, you want to add something, or I just leave it what you said? You are on mute. Maybe you can unmute yourself and go ahead. Yes. Now
Yeah,
you.
let me add something a little bit.
Mm,
Exactly what she said. My brother, volunteerism pay a lot, but people don't know.
mm,
Uh, they were having their mechanics at that time, and everybody, just focusing on money, and they're giving them money, and the work was not done. And this is how I was having my late boss man, late Councillor Lawrence A. Morgan,
mm,
and he said, "Hey, you got to help these people. They are stranded." I said, "Okay, sir." I took my boys and my tools, and we went there. I did not ask for anything. I did not ask for money. I did not ask for nothing. And I went right away, and I got into it while everybody was waiting. Everybody was doubting if it would be possible, and God made it possible for me. And I started their generator, and they were good. That night, everybody feel happy. And right away, I took my boys. I say, "Hey, old little taxi." I say, "Hey, you guys get in. Let's get back home." And a guy from, I don't know, I can't remember again. I don't know whether he was from Canada. He looked at me and say, "Hey, man, who are you?" I said, I called my name. He said, "Surely these tools you have is what you think you fix this machine with?" I said, "Yes." He said, "God damn, you guys, you are so special." Yeah. So he said he checked in his wallet, and what was there just $100, and say, "Hey, you can take this, Kevin. I love your work, and I love you, and trust me, anytime you come to America, I will take your responsibility. I love a guy
oh,
like you." I said, "Thank you. I appreciate it." Leave,
that's
you know.
that's very nice. That's very nice.
So this, yeah, yeah. So this have continued going, have sell me all around the world. That is what even making me and you talking today, seeing as
Right.
brothers,
Right.
and
Right.
it keep expanding. That
Mm,
voluntary I
mm,
did, it keep expanding,
mm,
connecting me to the world, you know? And they were even having another vehicle in Lofer that kept there for 1 year. The mechanic, they make it. I went there and moved that also. You know,
Mm,
this is where they started. Heather started seeing my talents, and
mm.
I keep proving it. And one day she asked me, "What you think you really want to do?"
Oh,
I said, "I
wow.
want to help my people."
Mhm.
Wow. That is amazing, Kevin. That is amazing. Quite frankly, you you want to make me emotional. That is amazing. Thank you. That is amazing. That is amazing.
You know,
I cannot
so
overstress that. Yeah.
I mean, after she went back, we keep discussing. I said we can start out.
Mm,
I want to, even if helping a kid, there's a lot of kids here that cannot even afford a pencil, just a pencil, you know.
mhm,
So we started trying, sending school supplies, a little ticket to schools, schools that will not see it as nothing. I look for schools that they will appreciate it. So I get it, share it. So within the program, we can see some kids that I can really feel how brilliant they are. So we started discussing to find some uh, uh, you know brilliant students that are going through a lot to
mhm,
started helping them. This is how we started. We started
mhm,
with few copybooks, pens
mhm,
and pencil. At the end of the day, it went to we supply more than 1,000 kids,
mhm.
and then we change it to scholarships, and we pick children that we put them to school onto high school. I think
Wow.
next year will be the last to 10% that will be graduating from high school. The rest
Okay.
have graduated from high school
Wow.
and from scratch, from some of them from kindergarten all the way. And we look at it, we say, hey, okay, now I think we need to start something. We'll get into recycling, you know, the
Mhm,
plastic, people
mm,
drink water in and drop it. We started creating that. We fix it as bag bearer, and
mm,
because some students cannot afford bowl bag to go to school.
mm,
So we did all that. We teach young people how to show that, and we supply a lot of kits with that, and
mm,
which was durable, particularly rainy season when they put their bags in, they're going to school, rainfall, their book are safe.
Mhm.
We get into computer and so forth. This is where we are today.
Wow. That is amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you other questions, but you guys share some videos with me. I'm going to share with the audience for them to see some of the work you're doing. We may ask some specific questions there, but I like to take this time to 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 do that here. Let me see. This is going to allow me to do it. Yes. This is the student working on one of their final projects. So let me get that going here. Oh, did I stop that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you hear it?
So
No, we can't hear it.
Okay, give me a minute here.
I am not
Okay, okay, I got it.
I
There it is. Yes, electrician students.
Mm,
So
mhm,
so basically they get this big plywood board and then they set it up like an apartment.
mhm,
So they'll have the switches and the receptacles or outlets is what we call them here. And then they do the connection and they have to show that the lights turn on.
Wow, that is one video. Let me show one more, please. This is so interesting. I'm gonna show one more. Um,
This is event decoration, Kelvin.
so let's see here. Uh, oh, this is the event decoration. Is it still showing?
This next one is, yeah,
Okay, let me. I
because
think I
you'll
removed it.
hear the academic students in the background.
Okay, let me do that. Share screen. Yes. Yes. Is it vintage gold Swan Lake painting? Is that it? Or
No,
the event decoration? Okay.
event decoration, yeah.
It says sorry. I'm
Swan
still,
Lake.
yeah, I'm still learning to do this thing here. So let me get it going. Good. There we are. And then I'm going to play it.
Calvin, can you describe this?
So what are they doing here, Kevin? Or maybe Heather, you can explain to us.
I think he.
So I think that yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, visual. Yes.
Oh,
It's
he's on the.
really
He's talking on
on
the
the
video.
table. Okay. All right. This is what they do. Our event decorations also help with recycling. Uh, like people throw out bottles. We take these bottles, we clean it fine, and we design it.
Mm,
People can be able to decorate their dining rooms or living rooms. You know, so
mm,
these are the kind of things we does.
mm,
We also have in recycling.
mm,
So thing that people think that it no longer works,
mm.
we make it usable again. So
Wow.
Mhm.
this is all what we go into. You know,
Mm,
yeah,
mm. So how do you
that's what we
know
do.
how do you know which student or which child needs those traits? Do you create an application form for them to apply, or do you make an announcement for them to know? How do they get to know about these things you're teaching them, and then they become students?
Um, oh, Calvin, are
Thank
you
you.
there?
This can happen during our this can hap- this yeah this can happen during our recruitment.
Mm,
The first encouragement we can give to our youth. I ask you, what motivates you to do this course? You know, some of them can say, "Oh, because my friends say they are coming to do it, so I want to do it also." I say, "You will not learn it. Please talk to me. What is your passion? What is your passion?" Then I will break down all these courses. This course, this is what it does. This course, this is what is in demand. This course, this is what you can do. You know, so they can say, "Oh, I didn't know." Because my friend said they want to come do computer, so I decided to come and do computer. I said, "You're not going to know it if computer is not your passion." So
mm,
this is how they can quickly, you know,
mm,
think about their passion. They can come to themselves and say, "Oh, yeah, normally, or even I've been thinking about this course, but because my friend wanted, I said, it is here." Okay, that's where I'm going. That's my passion. So this is how we can get them, to their reality,
mm.
not following someone else.
Wow.
The other
That is
thing is too,
That's the strategies that we can apply.
okay.
we cater from people who've had no formal education to high
Mm,
school graduates to even college graduates because they can't find jobs. I had a young woman call me back. She had graduated from college, couldn't find a job. She came into our cosmetology program. I think this was before COVID, and she gets on Messenger with me, calls me up, and she had to tell me, I am now making money. You
ha,
know,
ha.
and when I was there in 2024, I interviewed 8 of our alum from graduating from 2019 to 2023. 6 of them were self-employed, 2 were employed. One of them who graduated in 2019, he came right out of high school. He didn't know what he wanted, but he got into electrician. from there, after he got out of our program in 2020, he sent me a message on Messenger. I haven't gone 1 week broke since I graduated. Then he self enrolled or self paid for his college education. He was at one of the private schools there. He got a degree in 2024 in chemistry and biology. At that time, he was thinking about doing public health. He had a real interest in that. But his electrician stuff is keeps growing because it's all been through word of mouth. He's not a business, he's an independent contractor. People love what he does and they recommend him. He just enrolled this year into Stella Maris Polytechnic for his electrical engineer, and he's paying for that as well. I mean, so you got from someone who really didn't have a vision, who now, 7 years later is just thriving. Uh, Calvin knows we've had a young woman. She came in 2022, graduated in 23, but she enrolled in both cosmetology and electrician.
Wow.
And because she always knew cosmetology would be her fallback, but she really wanted to be an electrician. Now, Liberia still has a little problem of getting women into those fields,
Hmm.
but she's determined.
Wow.
So that's just kind of some of the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, that is really amazing to hear. And thank you. You guys teach real trades to the student: driving, auto mechanics, welding, computers, tailoring, catering. You do all this to them. I even heard a story, Kevin. I have to ask you about this story that I read
Yeah.
about. Okay. So that you once built an oven out of a repurposed freezer so your catering students could bake.
Hmm.
Is that true? If it's true, tell me the story more because I think it says everything about how you build and who you are as a person. Are you there,
Yeah.
Kevin? Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yes, yeah.
Uh, my brother semantics. I'm just I give.
Oops.
I'm getting you. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting you. Go ahead. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I said. Okay. I said this is something I feel gifted. Okay, and I always love to make and I brought this. I tried to do this because we are a very small organizations and we're trying to do the right thing. We cannot bring in, catering students that they will not learn catering.
Mm,
They will not be able to cater. That we are fooling our people. So, and at that time, we were not really strong to get a molding oven and but I say, okay, this we have to make things happen. We have to. So I did. Now this oven, it is there. We have bought another oven, original oven. Is gone, is finished, and that oven is still there. Because I understand it. So you're in the freezer. I believe that when a material is protected, it will be able to keep the heat. So
mm,
they have used this, my brother, over unto 10 years now, but we still keep it aside as a UDS, one of the records,
mm.
how UDS started.
Mm,
It's about we always they call something of feasibility duty, right?
mhm,
We always our goal is to focus on the organization,
mm,
not ourselves.
mm.
We gave ourselves out to the organization to serve the
Mm.
people. And I
Wow.
really commend Heather for this because I can see everything she is doing, she doing it for us. She don't have any parents. She
Wow. Right. Right. Yeah. That is really amazing, Heather. I know Kelvin is having some connections issue there, but
Right.
this is
yes.
an amazing thing
She
you're
gave
doing there. You know, I'm
me
hearing him
strength because
from what he's indicating. You know, you the backbone of this organization. I'm hearing him clearly. You don't have a parent in Liberia. You don't have relatives there, but here you are. You know, supporting the team, being with him,
yes,
being with the
I'm on
team.
the
You know,
ground.
yeah.
Oops.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's getting a little
So
bit bad
I
there,
mean,
Kelvin. Yeah.
we yeah,
Okay, let me
So
pivot over there. I would
this
have
is
loved
this
to
is
hear the
this is
detail, but your connection is slipping in and out, and we have 20 minutes to go, and I still have some questions. So I'm going to move on to ask Heather this question.
no
So
problem.
yeah, from where you sit here in Minnesota, Heather, what is it that Kelvin built that the rest of the world keeps overlooking? For instance, we live here in abundance of a lot of things, and sometimes people even take for granted the opportunities, the wealth and affluence and great material things we have in this country and in many advanced countries. And here is Kelvin, you know, dedicating his life to helping young people in Monrovia, and he's building things. What is it that he's doing that some people overlook or take for granted in this part of the world?
Well, I think first of all, we just got to go back to, as someone in the U.S. We didn't again spend a lot of time really learning about Africa as a continent, even getting into the individual countries. And obviously, we had things like geographic magazines. There was certain depictions of what Africa was, and it was limited maybe to a certain tribe in a certain part of Africa. So it kind of narrowed what it is. And I think there's also a thing, semantics, you've heard this, there's a brain drain. So when people leave their countries, it makes it sound like there's nobody who's intelligent or
Yeah.
capable left in the country. So I think there's a lot of different narratives that are out there that can kind of uh, blur what the whole real picture is.
Mm.
And I have spent a lot of time, like with Calvin, but other people. I've gotten to know some people on the ground, and these are hustlers. These are people getting done. They just don't have the same. Basically, some people were lucky and some people are not. Okay, I get down to it. Some people had an opportunity, some people don't,
Mm.
and they're fully capable of doing things, and
Mm.
that's a big thing. The other thing is, it used to be, why are we giving all our money or all our resources
Yes.
to these type of
Yes.
countries?
Yes.
Well, my dad, who passed away this year, but he was in a facility for a while. If you were to go into these facilities, especially in Minnesota, you're going to see a lot of them are African immigrants, Liberian, Kenyan, Moroccan, wherever, and they're taking care of our most vulnerable people. So I think there is given back. It,
Okay.
it goes both ways. It's
Mm.
reciprocal.
Mm.
But if you live without paying attention, if you live in a world where you're not sitting down with people that are not like you, you're really missing out. You're
Yes.
really missing out on a bigger and beautiful world we have.
Mm.
And if we only classify people by maybe their name, what degrees they hold, um, what location they live in, we're really missing out on some talent.
Mm.
Because again, there are people that have been inspired by Kelvin,
Mm.
based on what he does. I've heard from two people, and one is our second in command, where it's like, now I feel like somebody. One of our electrician graduates said in one of our commenting on one of our posts, they take the invisible and make them visible.
Wow.
So I think when you again, this is Calvin and his team are brilliant at. It's rebuilding the person, making them feel confident, make them know that they have self-worth, because as we know, throughout the world, we beat the crap out of the youth. We make them feel like they're not worthy of anything. Like, what do you
Right.
know? You're not experienced.
Right.
But we know there's certain, even here, you have youth that are taking on responsibilities as children, taking care of their families at a young age. It happens here, it happens in Liberia and so many other places. That's already work, that's already experience, whether they like it or not.
Hmm.
That means they're already gaining some wisdom. So we can't just put all the youth or children in the same bucket either.
Right.
We have to
Okay.
accept the nuance of
Right.
life.
Right. Okay. Well, there's as you two are talking, mentioning about the impact you're making on the children. There's something going through my mind, and I'm wondering. I need to put this straight to you, Heather, because I live here, and I'm running a nonprofit right now, more as you are aware, and so that I would name one thing that keeps founders up at night, and you are no exception, Heather. And Kelvin, I believe, is also of the same thought too, and that is money.
Hmm.
Small organizations like yours live or die on funding and on continuity, sustainability. What has kept Uniting Distance Stars alive, from two students back in 2011 to hundreds of graduates today?
Blood, sweat, and tears. So I try to do my best on the fundraising side here.
Mm,
Since 2017, we've had to start doing tuition
mm,
because there's no way we could just get away with just what we're fundraising on this side.
mm,
And Calvin and his team make it affordable and make it doable for people to do this. Plus, because they're getting skills and they can start earning money where they're learning, they have avenues to help pay their tuition.
mm,
And again, you saw earlier, you could go buy a electric oven, pay for the electricity, or you can have someone like Calvin create a uh, oven out of an upright freezer and use charcoal to heat it. And so sometimes it's been innovation.
mm,
So, what can we do to make this work? We've survived Ebola. We survived when the peacekeepers left, because that was an economic pain in Liberia. We survived COVID. We're surviving whatever economic hit, whatever the season is right now. And like, Calvin knows this year with the ice situation in Minnesota, it's like I don't think we can do any strong fundraising right now because the attention will be in Minnesota. So
yeah.
we're always having conversations on what's happening in the two different countries.
Mm,
Because as you know, semantics, a lot of times we were worried about the politics in
yeah.
countries like Liberia, but
Yeah.
now we're worrying about that in countries like USA.
United States. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just so you have to keep all that in the forefront of the conversation. And and they have built systems in place, and they have that community that they've built.
Mm.
So I think that's really what helps keeps us going. Yeah.
In terms of that support, and I'm going to be more direct here. Kelvin, maybe you can chime in here if you have an idea, because I know the two of you are co-founders and executive directors, so you will know more. The government of Liberia, governments, I might add, both the current one and the predecessors have always, especially starting with the former president, not the late, former president Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, there have been calls about Liberians helping Liberians, returning home to help rebuild the country. The current administration is even having a diaspora conference that is coming up, I think, in September in Washington D.C. Does the government provide any funding or any form of assistance to small nonprofit organizations like yours, whether in kind or cash, to help move the needle, to help educate these war victims of Liberia? I think Kevin has frozen. Maybe Heather, if you have an idea, you can chime in there, and while we get him coming.
Well, I'm just wondering,
No,
Calvin, can
I
you
am
maybe
not
turn your
frozen.
video, maybe
You,
Okay,
turn off your video?
go ahead. No, no, let him leave it on. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
me. Uh, are you getting me?
Yes, I can
Yes.
hear you. Go ahead. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you, Kelvin. Yes.
You yeah. We have to understand that things. Still, people are thinking that Liberia has stay in the war. The war have finished. I think we are into 14 to 15 years now. So let us stop doing this charity thing with Liberians. It's not going to help. You
Hmm.
know, as an organizations, and they said they want to help the Liberian youth. You know, big organization, a lot of money, like example saying offering a month training. Hey, there's no vocational training that
Okay. I think you are we're
Yeah,
losing you, Kelvin.
yeah, we're losing him, and sometimes return the video helps.
Yeah.
We have not gotten any direct
interest.
assistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
You,
Okay. From government.
that is impossible. So the
Okay. Kelvin.
government
Mhm.
cannot build a country alone.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
are you getting me?
I hear you. Government cannot build a country alone, but
Government,
government can create the environment to help small organizations, whether in kind. They don't have to give you funding, but do they provide some teachers to help, train some of the students? Do they
I am
provide?
coming. I am
Okay.
coming. I am
Mhm.
coming.
Calvin, you're breaking
Is
up though.
they have to work along. They have to work along with the private institutions.
Okay.
So work along with the private institutions, there will be a great success.
Mhm.
So
Okay. We're
they will be
having a
But
able
well,
to
real.
improve curriculums. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Up to present, do you believe that
Yeah, he has really great points to tell us
what he was
about.
gonna say is right now there's no vocational training curriculum in
Okay.
Liberia,
Okay.
and he and others have been part of discussions because we're a TVET organization,
Hmm.
and they haven't had like a national curriculum program for that. And what I think he also was trying to make a point on is that there hasn't been any support for private institutions. So far, it's been for government institutions. And as you know, semantics, Liberia is a young country because there's more youth than there is older people.
Hmm.
And so the government schools alone are not going to do enough, so there has to be more support, but that hasn't happened yet. Calvin is probably more involved in discussions than actually seeing anything produced at this time.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. And I was asking purposely, and you try to actually respond in the right way, because if there is no curriculum for these
Hmm.
kind of programs, and you have government in place, government is in place to put policies in place, to put policies and put politics aside. And if that is not happening, I mean, I don't know how we can help to rebuild a nation without those policies in
that's
place.
it.
And
Yep.
Kevin,
That's it.
Kevin, you putting he putting you put it in real terms. I want Kelvin, he's breaking and we have 7 minutes to go. Maybe Heather, you could help me
Yeah.
put it in real terms here, for people who are watching.
Hmm.
What does it cost to sponsor one student to open one more classroom so they understand exactly what their help would buy?
Well, we have different courses and they have different price points.
Mm,
And Calvin will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like our catering and cosmetology is
Uh,
around what's
can you
catering
guys
and
hear
cos
me?
yeah, what's
yes, we
catering
hear you.
what does catering and cosmetology cost?
Heather. Um,
Yeah.
we have technical courses and we have other courses. For technical courses, number and every we offer 50% every year.
Okay. I
We'll get
didn't
you
get I
those.
didn't
We'll
get the
get you
cost.
those. No, we'll get you
Yes,
those numbers,
that would
Samantha.
be
Because
great. Yeah, thank
yeah,
you, thank you.
yes.
We got to move on. So, Heather, if the right partner or funder is watching right now or will be watching later, which we believe will happen, what is the thing you most need that money alone cannot simply hand to you and your organization, Heather?
Good question. One of the things that we've been trying to do, and it hasn't, we've come close, but it hasn't happened, is one, we'd like to have a partnership with a vocational school here in the States,
Mm,
to have that, someone who's up to date on what's, the current technology, because as you know, in places like Liberia, not always up on the latest trends, stuff like that. Yeah, be able to train our trainers, even maybe as their stuff gets older and they need to like replace it, maybe we can be the benefactor of their old materials. But get that expertise. But also they have an opportunity to learn about what's going on in Liberia and how people are making things happen with not having all the latest and the greatest stuff. That is one of the things we try to do. Or that could also be partners in people in the trades that we're training.
mm,
People that have businesses in those trade. It could be the same thing.
mm,
Because again, it's making sure that our students are equipped to meet the moment of where
mm,
we are.
mm,
We might not be at a position to get too deep into AI, but there's web development, there's other type of coding, things like that. But really help them get to the next step. And
mm,
also, we're still exploring the recycling stuff. How else can we get into these green jobs?
mm.
Because as you know, in Liberia, there's a lot of trash.
Yes, yes, it's a lot.
and how can you make that into something that can give money back and support
Mm,
other things? Yeah. So
that's good.
yeah.
Okay. And again, stay with you, Heather. A great many Americans, and I want to be honest here about what I'm talking here. A great many Americans want to really help, especially Africa. They want to help a lot of African countries, a lot of organizations. And if I'm honest about this, many of them do it badly. What I mean by that is that they arrive with the answers before they even have heard the problem or even have the question asked. They just come and say, okay, that paternalistic idea of, oh, I know what the solution is for you. I'm going to solve the problem for you, without even understanding. I'm going to provide you with the answers without even hearing what the questions is or what the problem is. From where you sit, what does that? What does respectful, useful partnership actually look like in the context of Liberia?
Well, like for Calvin and I, we're partners. It's not that because I'm here, I have
Mm,
the hierarchy. We're
mm,
equal partners.
mm,
So we're able to have a conversation. The group that's above us are the youth because Calvin, they run him. They they have really been they have been a driver of our organization. Like all the courses that we've kind of have come up with, it's usually through them. If we bring in a course, it might not be as exciting to them. So, and they definitely are asked for their feedback. They give their feedback.
mm,
And even the community, it was listening to the community. Like you said, I was at a meeting a couple of years ago, and it was even a Liberian here in Minnesota was upset because they built a latrine back home, but the people made it into a warehouse. So it's like if you don't ask their hierarchy of needs, you're not going to know if you're hitting the right one because yeah, everybody needs sanitation, but maybe they have businesses and they need a place to put their goods overnight so they don't get stolen. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So again, what you were saying, I think a lot of people come in with their ideas. They come with their own I'm from the US and I know
Yes,
everything and I'm better
yes,
than everybody else.
right.
No, and again, like I've seen some that, oh, this is how it worked over, let's say in Kenya, so they wanted to replicate it in Liberia. Well, they're not the same. I mean, that's again, unless you're on the ground, and again, things are changing all the time in Liberia. When I first went there in 98 to where it was last in 2024, it's a totally different country.
Mm,
The economics, everything has changed. So you can't base it on I was there 20 years ago either.
Yeah.
You have to know, and that's what's nice about having a someone on the ground who lives there, who breathes there, who knows everything. That's he can pivot. He can, you know, adapt to what the current state is.
Okay.
Where if you're just coming in once a year, you're not keeping up to what's changing.
Right. And then final question. I wanted to share some of the comments section there, but we're
Sure.
running out of time. So let me ask this final question to you. If a young person in Monrovia is watching right now or will watch the program later, I know 12 o'clock here is after probably 6 o'clock p.m. there. So there might be
5.
some who are, yeah, 5 o'clock. There you go. Thank you. If a young person in Monrovia is watching right now or will watch it later on, but they are unsure whether school or trade is even worth the effort, what do you say to them?
Based on what our results are, trade has made the difference.
Mm,
Um, you can still pursue your college, you can pursue whatever you want for a career outside of a trade, but the trade will bring in the money.
mm,
And we've seen that over and over again. One of our students that kind of grew up with us, he started with us in 2013. He was one of those academic that Calvin was talking about. His name was Ishmael.
mm,
He went through what at that time it was out of Calvin's house. It was a free computer program. He learned those skills. He then started working because he was living with his grandma. And he graduated from high school and he was paying his own way again to a private college. Um, and because of what we did, we guided him on his way, but he was using his computer skills to help him move himself forward. Unfortunately, in 2024, he died of an accidental drowning, so we don't know what his true end story would have been.
mm. Yeah.
But that is what we've done.
Okay.
You know, and again, it's up to the person too, because like
Mm,
Calvin says, there's a lot of people with trauma. They really take the time to talk with them, and they do everything they can to help bring that self-worth and that confidence, but they're still going to have to go out there in the world and do their part.
okay. Before I ask you guys a final question, I'm gonna try Kelvin one more time. Kelvin,
Okay.
I hope the connection gets get us going for this because I really want to hear from you what your thoughts are, Kelvin. These are comments I actually pulled out of Facebook. It says, I don't see that very clearly, but there's someone I say here. Congratulations, my dear brother. You are a blessed and great man indeed. May Allah Almighty guide you in your future endeavors. Words cannot describe how amazing this is. I'm so proud of the efforts and decision dedication to forging ahead. Kelvin Foma and Heather Cannon, congratulations to you and the entire United Distance Stars family, United Distance Stars alumni and student group. Keep up the amazing work. Cheers to more years ahead of growth and prosperity. And then there is one here. It says, backward never, forward ever. We move on. Simply amazing. Kelvin Foreman, Heather Cannon, founders of United Distance Stars, are certainly visionaries. They make a difference. They continue to lift Liberia and its people. Those were just few comments I pulled out of those. When I read those comments, I was like, really, wow. Kelvin, what do you say?
If you stay long more than this time, you will hear other amazing one more than that.
Mm,
And this is what blew me off always. This is what giving me strength to continue to do what I want to do. I want to continue hearing this in my lifetime.
mm,
As I told you earlier, I cannot be working in some company, then I will be getting such a remarkable or comment. No.
mhm,
So this
mhm,
comment is what holding me. This comment is what keep me going, keep me
mm,
focusing,
mm,
doing what we are doing.
mm,
I would just tell the audience that we are here for the youth. The best way that anyone was want to help is that I can help to give them direction, is to invest in organization led by people who actually live in a community and understand its immediate realities.
mm,
And I would like the audience to also know that not just charity, but we
mm.
need to focus on sustainability.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
sustainability is what the youth need of Liberia needs now. you know, and we believe in uh, teaching people how to fishing, not to be giving them fish, you
Mm,
know, because we give them fish today, they eat it and it's gone. But when
mm.
we teach them how to fishing, they will be able to catch fish every time, and they will be able to teach other people to catch a fish.
Absolutely
That's it.
amazing. Thank you, Kevin. That's not your final word, or maybe that's your final word. Heather, what do you make of those comments, those amazing comments coming
Well, I
from
want to
Kevin?
give you some content. Some of them are current students, some are former students. Two of them are donors that have actually been to our center in Liberia.
Okay.
So just give you that's the range of people that are there. And
Okay.
that's what it is. My messenger has blown up throughout the years, and people will share with me what they're doing. Or sometimes you're out on Facebook and you find someone sharing what they've been doing on their feed, and it always makes you smile because you know that you've made a difference. And like our high school students, they're now doing trade skills as well. So as our first 12th grade class graduates this year, they're leaving with trades as well. And so they have a better shot of being sustainable than just having that high school diploma.
Okay, well, that's amazing. So finally, and that's going to be your final questions because we are 6 minutes over time here. But um, if you had something in mind you wanted to share with our audience with Africa, because the show is the Africa Desk Live. It's not for Monrovia alone or Liberia. There are viewers in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Nigeria, all over the continent. My analytics is showing me where the viewers come from. They do not everybody come watch us live, but they go watch the videos and they read the comments and they read the postings and they would like to know more. If any of those later want to be watching and they see you here, what is it? What would be your final word, Calvin? You want people to know, and you want non-Liberians to know about Liberia, about the work you do. Just finally, maybe in 1 minute, and then you too. The same question to you, Heather, for 1 minute, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Oh, he's gone. This internet in Monrovia, it's something else.
That's
So
another work in progress, my
right.
dear.
I would like to
So
know, are you getting me? Are you getting
Yes,
me?
yes, go ahead. Yes,
yes.
I'm getting you. Yes,
Are you getting me?
yes.
Yeah, I would like to know, I would like to let the world know that the youths are the future. The youths are our future. And what they need for us here in Liberia, they need marketable practical skills. They need self-reliance and hope.
Mm,
They need, you know, reliable structure. This is what we call for. This we don't want to the youth to continue getting into politics because politics is destroying the youth in Liberia. Politics, most of the youth just feel that politics is the only way out now, and
mm,
we were trying to let others know so that they can help us that to engage this youth that we can keep them doing something that will take their mind from the politics.
mm.
So I would like to tell everyone that we watch this program and been watching. I give a lot of appreciation, and I will encourage them to do something about it, whether in Liberia or any part of African country. So, brothers, I know you said, oh, people are there that really want to help, but sometimes they fall into the wrong hands. But that should not make them give up. Let it keep trying, but they should find the real people to work with. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kevin. And Heather, finally for you.
Yeah, I think for the continent in general, I think it's very good to reinvest in youth. Education, trades, um, make sure that employment opportunities are there for them. I do pay attention to some of the surveys on the continent. I think a lot of people are interested in entrepreneurship. These are the next generation. They're going to be the next leaders. And a lot of African countries, it is a younger um, population that's dominant, and it's going to just be good for everybody. They're going to be the next workforce. They're going to be the next, whether it's doctors, nurses, lawyers, construction workers, whatever they are. They're going to be helping each continue to build their countries better and be more sustainable as this world continues to change.
Thank you so much, Heather. Kelvin Former, Heather Cannon, co-founders of United Distance Stars. What the two of you are building is quiet and it is stubborn. And it is exactly the kind of work this desk exists to honor. Thank you for giving us this hour. For everyone watching who wants to see this center for themselves or to stand behind this work, you can find them at unitingdistancestar.com. That's the website, and we will be posting that on our on our website, on our poster service, and then
Yeah.
as well as the website. We're working on those things, but we'll put it on our page so that people can see where those are. We'll upload some of those things. It was a pleasure having you both. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you
And
so much.
this is your desk. Feel free to come anytime. You just come across me here and across the desk, and then we can talk about youth development, diaspora development, organization, nonprofit. This desk is for you. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you so much, my brother. We really appreciate. Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, listeners. So that is it for us. This was the Africa Desk. And you can be Heather or Kelvin if you have an organization that is making impact in any part of the world. I know many of you are there in South Africa, in Kenya, Nigeria, in Ethiopia, and many other countries. And I know we cannot get all of you to the show, but we can get some of you. And if you want to talk about the impact you are making locally in your community, in your country, in the society where you live, this is your desk. Come across the desk. Let's discuss Africa. Let's discuss your country. Let's discuss the impact you're making. This second hour is exclusively for community development. There's no politics here. We talk politics during the first hour. The second hour is community development. If you have an organization, if you know of someone who has an organization that is making an impact, bring them to the show. Recommend them to us. You can see on our slides running banner down there. Our WhatsApp number is there. So this means you can be in any part of the African continent and send us your messages on WhatsApp. If you're not able to get to Facebook to send us message, you can send us messages on WhatsApp. You can call us, you can text us, you can message us. So thank you so much for being with us today. But before I let you go, look ahead with me next Saturday, the 25th of July. Okay? The Africa Desk Live travels to the smallest country on the mainland of this continent and to one of its biggest stories. The Gambia is a slender ribbon of land wrapped around a great river, nearly surrounded by Senegal, a place its own people call the Smiling Coast. And do not let the size fool you. Less than 10 years ago, the people of the Gambia did something the whole continent stopped to watch. They stood up at the ballot box and ended 22 years of one man's rule. Next week, we ask what that hard won democracy has become, what it costs to win it, and who is guiding it now. Our guests will be announced this week, so stay close to the desk. Until next week, have a pleasant weekend and see you next week as well. But also, my home country, Liberia, will be having independence coming up. It's unfortunate that there are a lot of other planning around it that will not materialize, but we will talk about that next week. So please have a great weekend. And as always, if you've never followed us, if you've never shared this show, please share our show to your friends, to your relatives, to your friends, relatives, co-workers. And if you're not already following us, please follow us. We are on X, we are on YouTube, and we are also on Facebook here, live every Saturday. Have a great weekend. See you next time.
That's the Africa Desk Live with Sematix King Jr. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, follow, or share this with someone who needs to hear it. And join us next week. Same time, same desk. Until then, keep the African heart beating.